Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm here with my co host, Akela. Today, we'll be breaking down PlayStation's most recent release, as you might know, Astro Bot. We'll also discuss the most interesting announcements that came from their state of play as well from last Tuesday. So, hey, how are you? I know you're very excited about Astro Bot and talking about this.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good experience this last couple weeks playing it. I was definitely excited when they first announced the game. I love platforming games. It had a lot of things that reminded me of Mario, which for me, there hasn't really been a good 3D Mario game in quite a while. So, this was kind of something I was looking forward to fill that gap.
Yeah, or have something similar to Mario. I think since 2017 we haven't really had some 3D platformer kind of like that gives you the same feeling that Mario does. I really think Astro Bot hit it in the park here. Make that kind of fills that gap a little bit, but it kind of still gives me that hunger of I want an actual Mario game. If anything, it just made me more excited for a Mario game, if that makes sense.
Well, I think the thing that you have to realize is it has a lot of similar ideas, it has a lot of similar concepts, but it's not trying to be Mario. And I think that's what first threw me off a little bit because I thought that's what it was. And so I started being a little hypercritical. And then, reflecting back on my experience, I was like, it's not the same experience. That's not what they're trying to give you. They're trying to create their own unique thing. Despite using some mechanics I feel are very similar. But to me what mattered most is that it's a beautiful game, and the things that they decided to do with mechanics and gameplay, they did it super, super well, and the game feels very smooth and polished, and that's what makes it really fun.
Yeah, and I think one of the another thing that I noticed when they first announced this, I think same like I felt like, oh my gosh, there's PlayStation again trying to copy Nintendo. I'm not saying that that's usually the case, but that's kind of how I felt at first when I saw it. Then after playing it, I'll be honest. Like as I was pessimistic, the fun I got from this game just kept growing. I just felt like I just kept liking this game as much as the more I was playing it, and I think from some statements I've seen, like of how this team, the team that created this game, I think what's important is that they were able to finish what they wanted to accomplish. They didn't do more that they wanted to do. They just did what their goal was, and I think that it shows in the game. Because I do have that feeling at the end of the game that's like, this was like the perfect amount of Astro Bot, or like game time. I feel like if there was like another level that had to do with the story, I would have thought, this is too much. Like this is dragging on for like forever. But I think this was like the perfect timing. I don't know if you would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I think that Astro Bot has a lot of good things. So they have 5 main like galaxies that you can travel to. Within each of those, there's at least 4 normal levels. There's a boss level, and then there's a post-boss level that you unlock once you've defeated the boss. And then the cool thing is if you go back into those worlds, you can go back and discover little challenges, right? So they're typically, take a specific mechanic or a specific thing, and they test you on that mechanic and, push you to the limit. Because I feel like most of the game is pretty easy to get through. So it's kind of nice having that mixture of easy, lighthearted platforming and then some of those more challenging levels that push your skills to the test. So I think it was definitely, like you said, enough. There were some mystery levels you could discover too if you wanted, right? That gives you just a little extra if you want, but obviously those aren't required by any means. So I was definitely satisfied by the time I completed the game.
Yeah, that's good. Was there a level that you struggled with?
I would say, ooh, good question.
Yeah.
I don't think I particularly struggled with any of the levels for the most part. I think the only one that actually gave me the most heartache was it was one of the boss levels with you have to face off a giant chameleon. That's the only one I think that gave me the most trouble for whatever reason.
Oh.
I don't think it was hard. I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't do some of the stupid stuff.
I will say that was also the boss that gave me most struggle. Mostly there's the part when he he's like throwing you these what are these called?
Like discs?
Yeah, he's throwing you like these discs. But not like the first time. It's like the second time. He like throws you like you have to like jump like twice on them. I think it's like second or third time, I don't know, but like I will say that was the hardest boss for me. And I mean, I since I did some extra stuff as well, there is some challenging levels, as you're saying, that you're which they can break your head a little bit, I'll be honest. But I think it has the right amount of challenge. Like it doesn't drag on that either. So I think most people should be able to just finish this game if they ever get it. And I think most people should also like, have fun with it.
Yeah, this is definitely a game that you could recommend to anybody and they could pick it up and play it for the most part. It's really good at giving you hints and tips when you get stuck or confused on any particular mechanic or aspect of the game. So that's really nice. It's, obviously very child friendly, I would even say. And, but it's still a lot of fun. I don't think, any of that takes away from the experience as a, full grown adult.
Yeah, like I think for parents out there, for parents out there, I do think that for parents that want to introduce their children to video games, so like, they think video games are fun and they're like, oh, I want my child to start experiencing some video games. I think this is like a perfect game for that. Like, the game is so easy in terms of understanding the controls. It's kind of built for children. Kind of feels like, because you don't just have your normal buttons, which the only things you push are like 3 buttons and the joystick. That's it. And other than that, I think what's great for like children, I would say, is like all these different things you can do with the controller. Because they have like some parts where they use motion controls. There's a part where when you blow the controller. I could just feel like for kids that will be fun. Like that's like, oh, this is fun,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, just kind of like for little kids.
Yeah, well, I kind of thought we would discuss a couple of the things that stood out to us. So I wanted to start with like level design. What was your opinion on like all of the different levels and their designs? Did you think they were clever and interesting, or did they seem like repetitive at any point?
I think for most of the levels, I was pretty much impressed. Because even with the ones that had mechanics that were already introduced, like for example, you had the chicken
launcher.
The chicken launcher was like a jetpack, or there's also a launcher that's like a dog that instead of shooting you up, it shoots you straight. I think it was fun to see how they turn around that mechanic. And it's kind of like, I'm not gonna introduce you to something like new in terms of like you have a new thing or item. I'm just gonna play with the platformer with you. Like, I'm gonna move around the actual platformer, like the actual level, so you think or you feel like like this is new. Like, like this feels refreshing. Like this feels fresh. This feels good. There were a couple levels that did feel a little repetitive, mostly with those 2 mechanics, I will say. I think the chicken launcher was the main one that I was like, okay, it's the chicken launcher again. But I was very impressed with the amount of ideas they were able to present in this game and use the platforms for the benefit of them. Like, and make them so unique and fun. I guess that's just the best way I could describe it. Just fun.
Yeah. Well, cool. I do think to actually some degree they got a little repetitive. So like there are some hidden things, right? So if you've already seen videos about the game, like the previews and all that, you know that there are video game characters from PlayStation's past and even some more, recent and current ones. But within the game, you can find them. You can also find some puzzle pieces, and then you can find like little portals that take you to hidden levels. But for me, the biggest thing is that at the beginning, I found like it was fun exploring and trying to discover them. It was still fun throughout the whole game, but I started to quickly realize that certain paths or certain ways or certain areas I would need to do this specific thing or go to this specific spot because they were all very hidden in a similar fashion, right? It wasn't the same spots. It wasn't always the same, but for the most part, they started to, have like I need to deviate off the path in this direction because that's what I've been taught, which is good, that's the idea, right? You learn something at the beginning and then you can master that idea later on in the game, right?
Yeah, I do think going along with the trying to find the bots that you were mentioning, I do think that it did feel a little tedious at the end. It's easy after, like, because you kind of have an idea of where they're hiding them, like hiding the puzzle pieces, hiding the portals, and hiding the Astro Bots. But as the game, I think I would say that that's the only part that I was like, okay, it's not like you feel obligated to do it. It's just like you kind of feel like you're missing some part of the experience if you don't get them. You know what I mean? And that's I would say most of the time. This is also downside of this game. Most of the time, I spend most of the time in the level finding these bots or puzzle pieces than the actual platformer. Like, I would say the platformer, if you were just to speedrun it, it would be such an easy speedrun. Like, if you didn't care about the like all the stuff that's hidden. It's kind of like the moons from Mario Odyssey, but just a different kind of. I feel like it felt like more than that, because it's just not the bots; it's also the puzzle pieces, and some levels have the portals, which the portal if you get the portal first, then it makes you have to start over the level if you want to get the rest of the bots or the rest of the puzzle pieces, So.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, really thoughtful design, in my opinion. Like, levels were very, well put together. I never felt confused or lost, I knew exactly what I had to do. I always understood what it wanted from me and all of that. And I think that's all super important. The mechanics they used in each level worked really well, made sense, a lot of those things. So I think overall it was very successful. It was just my personal experience was just a little bit of repetitiveness, but like we said at the beginning, it wasn't to the point that I was sick of it, right? Like, that's why it was just a big enough game. It's not huge. There's not, 60 hours worth of content. I think I was able to finish all the main stuff within about 10 hours. Now, granted, I didn't find everything. I wasn't 100% concerned about that.
Yeah. That's good. That's the thing when they see not like when I see checklists, but when I saw like, oh, you can get like the bots, and the bots are like the PlayStation. Some of them are like PlayStation franchises, like characters from those franchises. I was like, oh, I want to find them all, and then I felt like finding all the puzzle pieces as well. It took me around 15 hours. It took me like an extra 5 hours to, get all those extra levels going.
To be a completionist.
And yeah, to be a completionist basically. And yeah, I will say that the game's very fun. It does have a little bit of repetitiveness that you mentioned. Very clever design from them. I do think most people that love PlayStation or have a dear, I don't know, attachment to the company because of their past franchises, whatever. This is like a great game for you because you're literally there's gonna be levels that are you're gonna be like, wow, like I remember this game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so let's dive into that actually. And this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert if you care about any type of spoilers. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but just so you know, we're going to be talking about some of those characters. So, I wanted to actually talk about first is the Kratos one, right? So I know, yeah, God of War. So what happens is I think it's the second galaxy, you defeat the boss, and like you said, you get an extra special level that you get to do. And this is based on a specific franchise of PlayStation. So this one in particular was the God of War franchise. It was based off of like the 2018 and the Ragnarok ones, not the older games. But the cool thing is you get to take on Kratos' powers. So he gives you his like axe, and then you get to throw it, and it's just so exciting. I don't know. I know I could play God of War, but there was just something so magical about being able to be him and do that kind of stuff while also doing all these cute platforming things and having to find all of, the other characters and his friends from the games. So I mean, I think that was great. They have several of those at the end of each galaxy. You have Nathan Drake and the Uncharted series. You've got
the Loco Rocos.
The Loco Rocos, which is a game I didn't know about before.
Yeah, it's the one where you're a blob. You're a blob and you're literally like in the game, like as you're being Astro Bot. What you do in this level, you literally make you a blob, and you have to use motion controls to control the blob, and it's basically the screen just it's a moving screen, and you're just going through the platform as you go. Well, it's not quite a moving screen, but it's an interesting level design. It's like when you can split into little Loco Rocos, and then you can become again like the big one, and they play with the platforming with that, and I thought that was fun and clever. There was the Ape Escape one where you have to find the different apes. That was fun. I think my least favorite one was the Horizon one. So there's a Horizon level, which I mean I will say the mechanic of using because they make you use Aloy's arrow. That was cool, but just the level itself just felt a little bit meh.
I think that is also a little bit due to the fact that being unfamiliar with those games. Now I get like Ape Escape you're not very familiar with either, or Loco Roco, but their concepts are a little easier, a little simpler to understand.
Yeah, well, I guess it could be due with that. I was just gonna say the same, like but I don't feel associated with Loco Roco or with Ape Escape, and yet I felt like those were fun. And I mean that's probably just a personal feeling that I have against like Horizon in general. Like I just don't feel like that's a game that really calls for me. So it's like I don't know.
Or maybe it just didn't translate well into platforming.
Right.
Mixture kind of game, which is fine. It wasn't bad by any means.
Yeah.
You just said it wasn't your favorite out of all of those.
I mean, I do have 2 favorite levels, actually. Actually, I have 3.
Well, let's hear it because I don't think I have a favorite.
I love the mouse level.
Oh, yeah.
That one was one of my favorite ones. You become a little, like, you get little mouse power where they lock you into a cage, they give you the mouse power, and basically you can become small. So, like, the grass is taller than you, or, like, you're just as tall as the grass kind of thing, And so, there's just more exploration in that part, which I thought that level was so cool. I was like, man, if they repeat and they don't repeat that level or that concept again, then that was a little sad. But at the same time, I think that's probably why it's my favorite, because of it was just the one level. I think my other level will be the Kratos' level. because I mean I liked God of War. I liked the last two games, and it was just cool seeing that in that platforming level. That I was like, man, they could literally make a game just about this, like a God of War game that's a platformer, and be like this will be cool. Like seriously, this will be fun. And then my third one was close to the end, which was kind of like it's when they introduce you to. I don't know if you played this one yet. I can't remember if it was in the Lost Galaxy or if it was in the last level, but it's the one where you have they give you the little you get the monkey arms again, but you get the like how are these instruments called
Symbols.
Yeah, so like they make you use symbols, and you kind of I don't know. That was just a cool level to me because it kind of in the music in that level as well is pretty cool. It kind of plays with the rhythm a little bit, which is kind of cool. Those are my 3 favorite levels. I will say this one's like top 3, and then the other 2 are like on top.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, another cool one that you made me think about was the casino. So that one was super cool too because, you know, they've got all these things going fast, and it's a funny story about this actually. At the beginning,
what happened here?
At the beginning of the game, right? You get this little stopwatch basically, right? And you can slow down time. Like that's the whole point of the game. So everything is at this level. Everything's moving really fast, and you have to like slow it down so you can, you know, platform through and whatnot. Well, at the beginning, there are these 4 slot machines that you can, you know, you can hit them and you can make them basically, you know, like a normal slot machine. Well, in one of them, there was a little robot guy. And I sat there for probably 5 minutes trying to time it just right. And then I finally realized that I have a stopwatch. I wasted a whole 5 minutes not even using the mechanic. And then
That's so funny.
I felt like such an idiot doing that, but
it's okay.
It was fine, you know. It was funny. I laughed at myself because I was like, oh my gosh, they gave me this power and I completely forgot to use it properly right off the bat.
And I'll tell you something, I felt that way at the beginning of the game most of the time, where I just forgot that I have something else other than jumping, you know, or other than punching, which that's part of the experience of this game if you haven't seen anything. Like I will say that's fair. You saw me playing, and you know, I asked you questions when you already kind of played through them, because I was like, I feel dumb. I don't know what I'm doing. And you're like, well, you have the power. Then I was like, oh yeah, that's true. You know, you kind of remind me of that. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think mechanics are all super super fun. I don't think we'll worry about getting to all of them because there are so many, and we want, you know, everybody else to be able to experience them and see how awesome it is. I did think we should talk a little bit about a couple of other things. One was music in it. Usually music isn't a big deal to me, but in this one I just felt like mentioning it because some of the levels had the coolest little musics, but then there were some that also had kind of an annoying little like almost techno feeling, like because he's a robot, all the music has a very much like I would call it techno vibe to it, but some of it worked, and I thought some of it I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad this was just one level, otherwise I would have died.
A lot of levels repeat the same music too, so it gets a little, I think that part also gets a little repetitive.
Yeah.
Or makes you feel like, oh my gosh, this game's getting repetitive, and it's some music does get repetitive. At first you can think, oh, this sounds so cute, or oh, this sounds so fun. Like the music just sounds so fun. But then, you know, you're in the last galaxy or in the last 2 galaxies, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's that song again. Oh man. And then you have to go back to your main planet, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to deal with this stupid song again, you know?
The do. It's cute. It's adorable, but it definitely, after a while, you're like, can we just hear something else other than this twangy country music?
Please.
And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, you'll know if you play the game. You'll know what we're talking about.
And same goes with the challenges. One thing I noticed is like all the challenge levels have the same music. And it does get a little annoying too. I don't know if that's part of the challenge though.
Maybe.
Trying to deal with it.
Yeah, I just thought that would be something worth throwing out there and mentioning real fast. And then lastly, before we move on to State of Play, I hope that you think we've covered everything though thus far.
I think so. I mean, most of it. I think so, and I think we can tie State of Play pretty well here.
Yeah. So, tying this in, we're going to be moving over to the State of Play now, but we figured this would be a great segue because the first thing that they announced in the State of Play was that Astro Bot was going to have a new free add-on. They said that they were going to add 10 new bots that you could find. They said they were some new, I think they said 5 new levels. They're kind of like speedrun levels, and they did say, I thought online.
Yeah, because I think the point is to, I guess have leaderboards.
Like have leaderboards.
Of who's the fastest. Question, before we keep moving on, Stale Played.
Oh, yeah.
What were you expecting from this before, now that we know what's on it? What were you expecting from a State of Play, or what were you expecting to see?
I don't think I was thinking I was going to expect anything new. I just figured they were going to be announcing a bunch of things that I had already kind of heard about or anything like that. I don't think I had any, big things I wanted them to announce or thought they would. I don't think I even knew about the State of Play until like the day before when you told me it was going to happen.
I mean, that's when they announced it.
Oh, well, then I didn't have any expectations on that one.
Yeah.
What about you?
Me, I know State of Plays are mostly about like, hey, this is what's coming up kind of deal, like they don't announce anything new. I just want to let that know to people that they always get hyped for State of Plays, and there's also all these other either journalists or people on Twitter or people or on social media that they try to hype up. Oh, State of Play, this is gonna be awesome. And it's kind of like, no, chill. State of Plays, from my experience, I've watched them all since they started this. At most, they will announce you one new thing, which this is what happened here, I think, or a couple, like one big new thing. Like if they announce you new stuff, it's gonna be very small stuff. But most of it is just gonna be like, okay, guys, this is what it's coming up in the next 3 months or 5 months at most. Just want to get that out there, so people stop getting hyped for State of Plays, and it's kind of like if it's not a showcase, because they do have a PlayStation showcase, they do it once every 2 years, I think. Those are the ones where they're supposedly gonna be showing more of their guns, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did announce quite a few things. We aren't actually going to talk about all of them. We just figured we would talk about the ones that were the most interesting to us.
Yeah, we don't want to bore your ears with some stuff that we don't even know about.
Yeah.
So, let's get started, shall we? So, I think one game that was interesting that they announced at first, now we mentioned Astro Bot first, but right after that, we had Hell Is Us. Now, it has no date, but this game, when they first showed it, the concept, the enemies look like the Spot from like the Spider-Verse movie, which was, I'll be honest, that concept of like however they like the world looked like, it looked pretty cool. Like, being honest, to me it looked like, oh, this looks cool. I looked at the combat after, I was like, this looks pretty generic, and I don't have that many expectations from this game either. It's like, This just looks like something, double A kind of game that's just...
I think it's going to be a decent game. I think it's got some really good ideas. The mechanics of the combat did look, like you said, a little generic. This is, I don't think, something I would put on my I have to play. This is probably going to be on a more let's see how it goes. If it gets really good praise, then I would definitely want to check it out. Otherwise, it would be kind of more of like a backlog game that if I get to it, great. If not, then I wouldn't be too worried.
Yeah, it's kind of the same how I feel about it. It's kind of like I feel like my backlog is already big enough that I don't have space for this kind of stuff, you know? Yeah.
We don't have space for mediocre games.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, great. And then they did announce, some VR games. We're not going to mention any of those because we don't have VR and we don't think they're really worth our time. But the next big one that I think would be worth talking about is the Arc Age Chronicles game. So this is kind of like another fantasy. It looks kind of like an action-adventure game. The funny thing about this is when I first saw it, I know that there's been a lot of talk about the Dragon Age Veilguard game. And I remember watching this one and going, I feel like this is what Dragon Age should have looked like. Or like this is what it was supposed to be. Not like necessarily mechanics-wise or anything like that. I just was thinking more from a visual standpoint.
I do think you're right. I mean, we'll dive more into Dragon Age soon because, as we have it in the list here. I would say, I don't have that much to say about this game. I mean, it was cool seeing, like, this is an MMO. Like, this is for people that are into MMOs, online. Which I thought was interesting, because at first they were showing the combat and they were showing the game. I was like, well, this looks cool. Like, if this, like, this is single player, right? This is like, oh, this looks like something I will play. Like, this looks sick. And, yeah, fantasy world, because you see necromancers, you see dwarves. Like, it was pretty cool art, and pretty cool graphics, I will say.
Yeah.
It looked very, very awesome. But then, I'm not very much an MMO person, so that kind of turned me off a little bit.
Yeah, that was my only one issue with that. I was like, oh, dang, I don't know how I feel about playing an online, game with multiple people like that.
But this does look like something like an MMO person, like someone that likes them. I think that could see this as being very exciting.
Yeah.
And yes, this made me think of the same thing. Like, man, Dragon Age should look like this. If anything, better than this.
Yeah.
But, that was... yeah, we'll dive into that a little more.
Well, I think this game is at least worthy of keeping on the radar, something to be watching for.
Yeah.
And seeing how it goes. Okay.
Let's move on. We got Sonic X Shadow Generations. So that's coming out on October 25th, I believe, or December. Can't seem to remember.
It's coming out this year. That's what matters.
Yeah. And so we have, what do you think about this one?
I think it looks really cool. I think it's fun. I think it's funny that they're doing it, like, to coincide with the movie. I know those movies have actually been doing really good. Obviously, they use Keanu Reeves. It's kind of like a big selling point. That's at least what I feel.
I mean, we're going to watch this movie.
But Sonic, like, it looks like a cool, fun game. It looks kind of like old Sonic game, but also looks a little different because you're supposed to be Shadow in it.
And
that's so a little more dark.
That's a selling point there. Like, I'll be like, I'm probably gonna. I'm thinking about trying this game out because, Shadow's cool. I love Shadow. I love his design. To me, it's like it's kind of like, this will be a weird comparison, but I just make you think about Dragon Ball. You have your Goku and you have Vegeta, and I'm a Vegeta person. So it's like Sonic or Shadow. I'm a Shadow person. Like, he's just cool. So that's something I'm definitely going to keep in the radar, and hopefully it turns out to be a good game.
Okay. Perfect.
Now
on to the big game of the whole thing. The Dragon Age, the Veilguard.
So excited about this one.
They've obviously been doing a lot of announcements on this. They've been showing a lot of gameplay. Today, on this one, they showed a specific battle where you're supposed to be fighting, I guess, this dragon that looks like an ice dragon. And then you also get to see, I guess, who's the big baddie of the game, the main evil character. It seems like some, crazy witch lady, and she's got 2 dragons or whatever. I know there's a lot of controversy with this game, and since we're new to this podcast stuff, I figured we'd kind of give some of our opinions and feelings about Dragon Age. But to start off, neither of us have actually played any of the originals. So we kind of originally thought it looked kind of fun and exciting when we saw the first like look into the game, right? When they gave like that preview. And then we've seen subsequent things about this game, and it's kind of becoming a disappointment. Would you agree?
Oh, I agree completely. Like, I keep looking at the combat, and I just look at it boring. I look at, like, I see what they're trying to do with the action combat, like, you know, live action combat, and then kind of like stopping and kind of make it turn-based. Like, I've seen this in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but Rebirth does it way better, or Remake as well, does it way better than this game does. Like, I don't know, like, I feel like I looked at the dragon in this trailer, and the dragon looked very boring to me. I mean, the design was like, oh, this is an interesting design for a dragon. Like, you could say it looks bad or looks good. I think that's over, you know, different opinions from everyone in there, but I just, you know, I looked at how the dragon moved, look at what the dragon's moves were, is like the dragon's, all the dragon was doing was like charging attacks and throwing you like 2 balls of ice or whatever.
And he would do like a stomping attack where he'd find the iron stomp, but the thing is like the person who was doing the playing of the game was at such a distance that it like felt unimportant, all of that attacks.
And I mean, I don't mean to compare, but like I think about that dragon, but I'm gonna compare because this is a AAA game, and this game should be on these standards, in my personal opinion, also known for what Dragon Age is. And you know, I compared this dragon fight with the Elden Ring dragon fights, and the freaking dragons in Elden Ring are way cooler, and they're so, you know, more. They look more threatening. They have more moves than this game does. Like the dragon in the dragons in Elden Ring, even though that's kind of like a fight that, because they're different dragons in the game, that they just have different elements. Basically, they have the same movesets basically, but you know, that dragon like flies, and while it flies, it's like spitting fire, or you know, rot, whatever. You know, and then the dragon stops, and yeah, he stomps you, but then he's like spitting fire all over the place and hits you with its, I think it hits you with its tail, or hits you with, you know, like there's just more feeling of this is a threat, this is a big battle, and
yeah,
and he in the music, and over here there's like nothing that tells me this is an epic battle.
I totally agree. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
But it's true. I was watching that, and there's nothing that said, my gosh, this is epic. This is like terrifying. It just felt very meh. And that's, I think, going to be the biggest actually downfall. I know a lot of people probably thought the art was going to be the downfall, but I think the actual gameplay is going to be a problem. I still want to test it out. I still want to play it just for the sake of curiosity, and so when we can tell you guys how it goes here on the podcast. But unfortunately, it's just not looking good for these guys right now.
Yeah, and it's very sad because this is from a very well-known developer that, like, they did very good games. You know, they're known from Mass Effect, they're known from the Dragon Age, they're known from starting the Baldur's Gate games. And so, seeing this is a little disappointing, and that's why I compare it to Elden Ring, because I think this is what should be. It should be in that level.
Yeah.
And if it's not that level, I think that's wrong. That's bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that means it's not in the standards that this franchise should be at. Anyway, so excited to play this.
Oh yeah, we're
as
excited.
You can tell. Well, moving on. We got an announcement for people that love Alan Wake 2. You will know this game very well. They announced a new expansion called The Lake House. What did you think about this one?
I think it looks super creepy. They didn't give us a lot. It's just really a panning down a hallway, and then that classic Alan Wake 2 thing of where they do like that jump scare with the face.
They did give some vibe of that you're gonna be around the Federal Bureau of Control or something like that.
Yeah.
The FBC.
Yeah, like one of their facilities. And
yeah.
So I have a feeling this one's actually going to maybe be a little more interconnected with
the lake.
With that lake, yeah, and what happened with the girl in control, and maybe give us a little more of an insight into why Spring Falls is the way it is.
Yeah, because that's, we know Remedy for these games, for they're building a universe here, right? Because like Control, Alan Wake, they both have to tie it up. And, I don't know if it's an expansion that I will get myself, because, I actually buy my games. We actually buy our games, so it's like, I don't know if we are going to be purchasing this. But, I mean, if I could, like, I would try it out if I could get my hands on this.
Yeah.
I would definitely try it out.
I think it looks cool.
Yeah. I mean, anything Alan Wake, I would try it out, because I'll be honest, that game last year was great. Was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right.
We are skipping a bunch of games here, just so you're aware. But the last one that we thought that we wanted to mention is just a announcement was Horizon. They are creating a remastered version of the first game, the Zero Dawn, for the PlayStation 5, and then obviously the Pro as well, which we'll get into the Pro here in a moment.
We'll get into that, and that's gonna be fun.
But I mean, I think it's fine. This is one of those games. I don't think it was long ago enough to need a remaster. I know a lot of people were hoping for, Bloodborne game and number 2, or even a remaster of that. There's just so many other games out there that would benefit from this more than Horizon Zero Dawn. And they were saying, it's going to be at the same level as the second game, the Forbidden West one. And I'm just thinking, I haven't played them yet, but I have a funny feeling that they weren't that different, other than maybe a little bit of the graphic fidelity.
That's it, yeah.
I mean, they said they even recorded, I think, 10 hours of, dialogue. They re-recorded some things. And I think that's a little unnecessary. That seems a little silly.
That sounds a little bit like Concord.
But, I mean, whatever they want to do is fine. So, I mean, if you haven't played this game, then I would say, great. This would be the one you'd want to get. But...
I do have some criticism on this. I do think... I know that they're given... there's full price for... If you don't have this game. I'm like, okay, fine. Full price for those people. But I think that... if you want the upgrade, it's for $10. And I'm like, well, you could just do it for free. I know that there were costs in here, but, these people already paid for a full game. You already released an update that makes this game run, I think, 60 frames on the PlayStation 5. You already did an update that was free for that. And same goes with, for example, The Last of Us 2. The Last of Us 2 was a game that came out, a year or a couple months before PlayStation 5 came out? And it's kind of like you made a remaster for The Last of Us 2 unnecessary, remastered as well. And same thing, you said, $10 if you already have it, and, if you want the remastered version, it's kind of like, why don't you just make it free? That's just a better practice. Other than that, I mean, this is going to make us feel old, but this game is 7 years old. Mm-hmm. 7 years old, and, this game comes out October 31st. And, if you are excited for Horizon, good for you. If not, good for you as well.
Yeah. So, last thing that we really... I guess there's two things. So, first, the next thing that they really talked about is the PS5 Pro. They announced a bunch of games that they said that they're going to optimize for it. I know when they first announced the PS5 Pro, they showcased some games, and they were all old games. And so, today, well, not today, sorry, on Tuesday, they had said that they were going to announce some old and new games. And we have the list here. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think it's that exciting of a list. The only game that I noticed that was going to be new on here was the
Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater.
Thank you. The words wouldn't come to my brain.
Yeah, it's okay. That's like the only new game that doesn't have an announced date yet. That's like, yeah, this is going to run better on PS5 Pro.
Which logically makes sense, right? Because it's got some updated stuff, and I'm sure Metal Gear Solid's going to try and push those bounds with their technology and their stuff. But everything else is, for the most part, older games that have come out in the last 5 or so years, you know? So, I mean, great if you're wanting a PS5 Pro and you haven't played any of these games by now, then obviously that would be great, but...
I mean, I'm not trying to give... I'm very anti the PS5 Pro kind of thing. I do think, if you don't have a PS5 or you don't have a system at all, and if you want to get into, like, if you're interested in the PlayStation, I would say, wait for the Pro, get it. It's cheaper than the PC would be. Now, that means if you care about the cost, I do think a PC gives you a way more options and
better value
than a PS5 Pro would do. Like, for example, like PC, your online's free. You gotta take advantage, take account out of that. Games usually they're more in sale. Like, more often they're getting on sale there for Steam or whatever. I just feel like PC does give you more options as a gamer than a PlayStation 5 Pro would give you, and you get the upgrades from the Pro even more.
Yeah,
like drastically more, because you can actually play with the graphics and make it. If you care about performance, you could like move little settings in there that it can get you even more farther than 60 frames.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna be honest. I am very much of the opinion that they get a little nitpicky on the whole graphics thing. I understand wanting to be able to have really good graphics with like good fidelity with
60 frames.
With 60 frames at minimum. But I feel like that if you were to put your PS5 on the one that prioritizes, right, the performance over your fidelity, I don't think the fidelity suffers that much. And when they were announcing the PS5 Pro, they gave you 2 pictures from like The Last of Us Part 2. And I was literally squinting to try and figure out what it was that was better. And they're like, oh, this object way out in the distance is better. And I was even thinking, I'm like, realistically, a human's vision doesn't work like that anyways. If you were to just stare off into the distance in the normal human world, right, things in the distance are blurry. That's just a fact. We can't see that far out with perfect clear vision. So what is the point of trying to create that effect on your PlayStation?
That's a good point.
Like, what they should be prioritizing is being able to get their FPS up to 120, because I know a lot of people care about that kind of thing, right? And I know that they're trying to create with this high fidelity with, good performance.
Their box, when you buy it, says 120 frames, but what they don't tell you is that you need a TV that has that kind of refresh rate.
Oh, yeah, you also need a really good TV or screen or whatever.
Exactly, and so guess what? Might as well get onto PC, because the monitors are more able to do that, or it'll be, I mean, it'll probably get a little more pricey, like, or you can probably get a TV that's like 4K 60 refresh rate. I feel like nowadays you can get probably TVs that are a little cheaper than the monitor, like the one we have that has like a little more refresh rate. But I think it's just ridiculous. I just don't think the
whole thing's ridiculous.
I just think the whole thing's ridiculous. I think at least 60 frames should be like the target.
Well,
for
I don't think
most games.
I'm not like big on the frame rate. I don't think it matters that much. I'm not very detail oriented in that sense, but I do understand that that's important to a lot of gamers, and I think 60 should just be a standard at that point. Then, like, 60 shouldn't be like what we're striving for. That should just be like, it's baseline 60 or more.
I do think I think what's wrong about the industry and PlayStation and the consoles mostly is that I feel like these games, like you're saying, while they're developing them, they should be targeting for like, okay, what fidelity would allow us to run this at 60 frames per second? Okay, let's build on that. Let's not push too far. Let's just get it to where it's 60 at least.
Yeah.
Or, just keep adding stuff to the point that's like, okay, maybe we pushed too far here. Let's just take away some stuff. Okay, now it's hitting 60 frames. I think that should be the standard, and I don't think you should, like, with fidelity. I think with performance, you shouldn't even have a performance. I think it's a console. I think it should just be running 60 capped.
Yeah. Always.
With a fidelity that's whatever they pick,
Which they said that the Pro would help with some of that, with some of the AI stuff, which I think that's good. I think the AI generative stuff does help, right? Because then they don't have to worry about the computer computing it,
Yeah.
As, like, it just helps a lot. But overall, it just feels like a cash grab on the Pro. It feels like they're just trying to make up some money for, as we all know, the failed Concord game, which we won't get into. But, yeah, not really anything exciting on that front, which is kind of a disappointment. Yeah. I wish they had announced some other really, really, high-end games that were coming out this year that we could look forward to a Pro and be like, yeah, that's why I need it,
Like GTA 6.
Yeah, GTA 6.
Which it sounds like it's not even going to be a 60, which makes sense. Because seeing the trailer, like the amount of render that CPU will have to do to run all those people and all the things that they're in that city is like crazy.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on. Last but not least, we got the announcement of the day, which was Ghost of Yotei, the presumably Ghost of Tsushima 2. As most people would know, this is gonna be coming out 2025, or was announced for 2025. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think it looks good. They didn't give us any gameplay. It was just a trailer. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. From what I understand, Ghost of Tsushima was really good. Something that I feel like I should play. I haven't gotten around to it. I think it would be fun to play. But as far as I can tell, it seems good. It seems like it's going to be an interesting, fun story. Yeah, I don't know. What about you?
I started the game, I think a year ago or a year and a half ago. I didn't finish it. The game is fun. It is a fun game of samurai story kind of thing. I won't get much into that. I would just say the art direction of this game just follows the same as the Ghost of Tsushima, the original, which was very cool art direction. The colors, the cherry blossoms, and just, I don't know, just the different colors of the flora. I think that's the part that kind of catches my eye a little more. And I'm excited to try this one out. I mean, I want to finish the first one. But it does, when they announced this, I was like, oh, cool. That's actual PlayStation exclusive. The only new announcement they had here. Really. Like, big new announcement.
Yeah, they had some other new ones, but I think this was definitely the biggest one.
Yeah.
So we are gonna wrap this up. I did want to ask though, out of all the announcements, if you had to pick one, what was the thing that you felt the most excited about?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, Ghost of Yotei.
Okay, so that one was definitely your top one.
Yeah.
I
definitely.
actually think, for me personally, I want to say the Arcade Chronicles, even though I know it's supposed to be an MMO, and that doesn't excite me a lot. I still am very curious to try it out. I just think it looked really cool. I would prefer that kind of fantasy over, I think, samurai a little bit. Just more interesting to me.
I thought you were gonna say Dragon Age.
If only.
If you had to grade this, how would you rate it?
I honestly think it's a solid 6 7 at the most, maybe a 6. It was a fine one, right? Like you mentioned at the beginning, it's not meant to be a big announcement thing. I think, although most of the games on here weren't anything worth writing home about for the most part, and it kind of felt a little bit like a waste of my time. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, but it was fine.
I'll give it a 5.
Ooh.
Well, to me, and that's being generous. I mean, Xbox like gave us like a showcase this June that I feel like, PlayStation hasn't given anything like that this year. Number one, that like I still think about that showcase. I'm like, that was like the big event. Like that Xbox event was like the big event. Number one, that. Number two, I mentioned what I mentioned before, that this is just an update one, which is true. But I just don't get, why are you updating me about Dragon Age? Like, that's a game that has been updated. Like, people are talking about it constantly. BioWare is, like, releasing new stuff constantly. It's like, I don't need to be reminded about this. I already know it's coming out. Just, you could have just... I mean, I think, like, 5 minutes of the whole time was, like, waste on that. And I just don't see... I just don't see the point. And same goes with Monster Hunter Wild. I mean, with Monster Hunter Wilds, I will say they at least gave a date, which was February 28th for 2025. So that was new. So I can get that one. But Dragon Age, I'm like, there's nothing new you had to show me other than more gameplay that's kind of like, meh.
Yeah, so, anyway. Understandable. I get that.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody, for listening and joining us. Yeah. We are super excited about some of these other upcoming games that are coming out in the next few months. Please look forward to our next episode. We are trying to upload one every week, and we are always trying to talk about new games that are coming out, and then also on occasion we'll hit some of the oldies but goodies as well. So please stay tuned. Remember to rate us and leave a comment if you'd like. And then also we are on Twitter if you want to follow us there. Our Twitter account is OneUpGamingPD.
Yep.
Okay, and we like to post updates on there and just other random things related to gaming news and whatnot. And then we'll, be updating you on when we post videos as well. So yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, guys. It's so exciting to be here with you.